If you think money only comes with effort, you might be overlooking the biggest secret of all: your living environment. She lived in a small home, full of bills, chaos, and echoing frustrations. The walls seemed to bear the weight of scarcity. But something changed. Something that seemed banal: the energy of the house itself. And when she discovered the truth Florence Scovel Shinn revealed, her financial reality transformed so dramatically that even her neighbors noticed. Stay until the end, because change can begin where you least expect it, and you'll see it with your own eyes. Chapter 1: The Invisible Weight of Walls. Charlotte Miller lived in a small one-story house in St. Petersburg, under the bright Florida sun. The neighborhood, Kenwood, was old, with tree-lined streets and porches with rocking chairs that whispered stories from past decades. But inside, her home didn't reflect the sweetness of the neighborhood. She lived there with her teenage son, Jake, and the constant feeling that something was always going wrong, especially when it came to money. Charlotte was unemployed, and the bills seemed to multiply. The fridge needed replacing, the kitchen plumbing was always leaking, and the energy in the house. Oh, the energy! It was as if every room drained her hope, as if that roof had absorbed every thought of scarcity she'd ever had. Every morning, she woke up with a weight on her chest. It wasn't just physical tiredness, it was spiritual exhaustion. The same routine, the same bills, the same feeling that no matter how much she worked, she would never get past that point. In the living room, the old television played home renovation shows. People turning shacks into palaces. Charlotte watched with a mix of fascination and frustration. They have money. Of course it's easy for them, she thought. But something inside her whispered that the problem wasn't just money. It was the environment. That house seemed to carry a silent curse, as if something there was holding her back. Jake, her son, often commented, "Mom, this house makes me sad. I don't even know why." Charlotte just shook her head. "It's just a rough patch, honey. Things will get better." But she didn't really believe it. It had been 5 years since they moved in after the divorce, and since then life had felt stuck. Her dreams, of opening a small cafe or painting again like she did in her youth, were buried beneath overdue electric bills and patchwork on the roof. That week, something started bothering her more than usual. A leak opened up in her bedroom wall. Dampness, mold, a strong smell. She breathed that in every day. And it felt like her spirit was slowly fading. Until one Saturday morning, while cleaning the wall with bleach and a cloth, a thought suddenly invaded her mind. Could this house be draining my prosperity? She froze. It was a strange question, but it felt like it came from somewhere deeper. And it was that very day, when she went out for coffee at the corner bakery, that Charlotte met someone who would change her life. A graceful lady with white hair tied in a bun was calmly observing the artisan breads. When their eyes met, the woman smiled. "You look weighed down, dear. Are you all right?" Charlotte gave a faint smile. "Just a hard day. Like all the others." The lady struck up a conversation, as if she'd known her for years. Within 5 minutes, they were sitting and having coffee together. Her name was Mrs. Evelyn Harper. She lived in the same neighborhood just 2 blocks away. And before saying goodbye, she said something that sounded like a prophecy. "Charlotte, your house reflects your soul. And your soul is crying out for change." Charlotte widened her eyes. "What do you mean?" Evelyn smiled and pulled a red-covered book from her purse, its corners worn. "Read this. Florence Scovel Shinn. This book saved my life and my house." She placed a copy of The Game of Life and How to Play It in Charlotte's hands and said, "You're going to need this." Then she walked away, as if she had completed her mission in that brief encounter. Charlotte stood still, the book in her hands, feeling that, for the first time in years, something was about to change. Subscribe to the channel and follow Charlotte Miller on this journey of spiritual and financial transformation. Chapter 2: The Energy Hidden Between the Walls. Charlotte came home with the book in her hands and her heart restless. The afternoon sun filtered through the faded curtains in the living room, revealing dust particles in the air, And somehow, she felt that was exactly how her life looked: suspended, stagnant, directionless. She placed the book on the coffee table, next to a vase filled with dusty artificial flowers. She stared at it for a moment, as if afraid to open it. The title, The Game of Life and How to Play It, seemed to challenge her. She had never thought of life as a game, let alone one that mentioned spirituality and money in the same sentence. That night, while Jake was in his room playing video games and the fan made an annoying rhythmic noise in the corner, Charlotte opened the book. On the first few pages, a sentence highlighted in pink jumped out at her. The subconscious has no sense of humor and takes your words literally. Florence Scovel Shinn. She read it again and again, then closed her eyes. Echoed powerfully. How many times had she told herself things like, "This house holds me back. There's never enough money here. This energy is just too heavy." Was she, unknowingly, commanding the universe to give her exactly what she was trying to avoid? The next morning, an almost impulsive idea took over her. Before heading to work, Charlotte stopped by a small shop and bought a white candle, incense sticks, and a new notebook. She felt she had to start somewhere. That night, after putting Jake to bed, she turned off all the lights in the house, lit the incense and the candle, and sat on the living room floor. The book was beside her. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and as Florence instructed, declared words of power out loud. "The house I live in is a reflection of the prosperity I accept into my life. Good energy and abundance flow freely through every room." Felt silly at first, but something about that repetition was liberating. As if with each phrase, an invisible layer of emotional dust was being lifted off the walls. In the days that followed, Charlotte kept reading. She learned that our words shape reality, and that everything around us absorbs the vibration we emit, including our home. "Mom, why are you taking down the living room curtains?" Jake asked, puzzled. "Because they're full of the past. We're going to change what we can, honey. Without money. With faith. And a little paint." Charlotte decided to gradually transform the space. She started with simple things. Threw away old magazines filled with stories about financial crises, donated clothes she never wore, cleaned out the closet as if it were a sacred temple. But it was in her bedroom that she found the most surprising thing: an old box filled with letters from her ex-husband. Letters full of resentment, blame, and unhealed wounds. She cried. For keeping those words so close. For allowing them to occupy space in the place where she slept every night. At that moment, she remembered another quote from the book. "The things you hold on to out of fear are the very things that keep you in fear." She burned the letters in the backyard. Each page turning to ash felt like a chain breaking. She felt light. For the first time in years. And that same week, something curious happened. An old friend called, offering her a small commission to sell homemade cakes at her office. It wasn't much, but it was unexpected. And more than that, Charlotte noticed that the light bulbs in the house, which always seemed to burn out, had stopped flickering. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. Either way, she kept cleaning, renewing, and above all, declaring out loud the new spiritual and financial atmosphere she wished to welcome into her home. And meanwhile, in the quiet of the night, the old house in Kenwood seemed to breathe differently, as if it were finally making space for money to come in. If you feel like your home needs a spiritual cleansing, like this video and subscribe to the channel to follow the next chapters of this transformation inspired by Florence Scovel Shinn. Chapter 3. When the house breathes, the money arrives. That Friday, Charlotte woke up with a strange sense of energy. It wasn't typical. She usually dragged her feet to the kitchen, silently complaining about life. But that day, when she opened the living room window, the air felt lighter, as if something invisible was shifting. Little by little, she began creating a ritual. Before leaving for work, she would light an incense stick, give thanks for the protection of the house, and declare out loud, "This house is sacred ground. Everything that enters here brings blessings and abundance." Jake watched her from a distance, still skeptical. "Mom, are you talking to the house now?" "No, son. I'm talking to God. The house just listens." Even she found it unusual. But something told her she was on the right path. Florence explained in the book that the invisible governs the visible. And if money wasn't coming in, maybe the issue wasn't her job or salary. Maybe the block was somewhere else, in the stagnant energy surrounding everything. That Saturday, Charlotte decided to do a spiritual revision of the entire house. She started in the kitchen, throwing away expired spices, torn dishcloths and broken items. Then she moved on to the bathroom, getting rid of all the cosmetics she used only out of obligation, as if she didn't deserve better. In Jake's room, she found broken toys, clothes that no longer fit, and even an old poster with a phrase, "Money doesn't buy happiness." "Jake, do you believe this?" "I don't even know, Mom. It's been there forever." "Well, now it's coming down. We deserve a new beginning." They threw it out. And in its place, Charlotte wrote by hand, using a simple marker, a sign with another Florence quote. "Do not settle for half of the good when the whole is available to you." Curiously, as the house was cleaned and reorganized with intention, small things began to change. Charlotte, who had never found time to cook lunch, started preparing meals with joy. She discovered food tasted different when made with good energy. And after decorating the kitchen with abundance quotes, she felt like even the stove cooperated more. On an ordinary Monday, while ironing clothes, she heard her phone buzz. It was an unknown number. She answered. "Mrs. Charlotte Moore?" "Yes, speaking. This is Karen Williams from Green and Willow Design. Friend recommended your cakes. We're planning a small event and would like to order 20 of them. Can we talk?" Charlotte could hardly believe it. It was the first time someone reached out to her for something like that. And she hadn't even advertised. Everything had been word of mouth, or maybe word of the universe. After the call, she sat on the couch, took a deep breath and thought, "Is this it? Is it really working?" The next day, while flipping through the book again, she found another quote that felt like a direct answer. Man can transform his world simply by changing his words. And then it hit her. It wasn't just the house that was transforming. She herself had become a new woman inside that home. Her gaze no longer focused on what was missing, but on what could be improved, with love, gratitude, and faith. The old Charlotte was content with surviving. The new Charlotte was learning to manifest. And that same week, she decided to buy a small new doormat for the front door. Embroidered in golden letters, it read, "Welcome, Prosperity." And every time she came home from work and stepped on it, she felt like she was entering a new home, not because of the change in furniture, but because of the transformation in her soul. If you believe that change starts from the inside out, and from your home to the universe, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 4. Money doesn't like mess. That rainy Tuesday, Charlotte had the day off. Jake had gone to school and, for the first time in months, she was home alone, in silence. She sat on the living room floor, coffee in one hand, Florence's book in the other, and she felt it. The house was responding to her. But soon discomfort crept in. Even though everything looked clean and organized, Charlotte noticed there were hidden things. Not visible dirt, but drawers full of useless papers, locked boxes filled with sad memories, and objects that carried old guilt. In the back of the closet, she found the picture frame with her ex-husband's photo, the man who had disappeared 8 years ago, leaving behind only debts and broken promises. For some reason, she had never had the courage to get rid of it. She picked up the frame, stared at it for a few minutes, and whispered, "You don't live here anymore. Not even in my heart." She left the photo next to the trash can, as if returning something to the universe. From that moment on, there was no more room for what didn't bless her present. In one of the book's chapters, Florence wrote, "The subconscious accepts anything you say with faith, even a lie. That's why you must speak what you want to see, not what you fear." And Charlotte understood. She was cleaning her house, but also reorganizing her mind. Suddenly, she began to notice how the external mess was connected to internal blockages. Each cluttered drawer represented an emotional loose end. Each item, saved for later, was a fear disguised as precaution. In the kitchen cabinet, she donated old pans she no longer used. In the laundry room, she got rid of empty bottles and expired products, and along with them, the feeling of scarcity that always made her keep everything just in case. It was as if she were telling the universe, "I trust. More will come. Better will come." And it did. On Friday, Karen, the event organizer, called again. "Charlotte, the cakes were a hit. People are asking if you take larger orders. I've got a small wedding next month. Want to talk?" She took a deep breath. Felt her heart race. "Absolutely. Shall we set up a time?" After hanging up, Charlotte closed her eyes and gave thanks, not just for the opportunity, but for the clarity she now had. Before, she would have declined out of fear. Now she knew, if the door opened, it's because I was ready. And then, she wrote another affirmation on the fridge door. "Perfect good is coming to me now, through visible and invisible channels." Florence Scovel Shinn. That night, while cleaning the bathroom one last time, she noticed the foggy mirror. She grabbed a dry cloth and wrote with her finger, "Thank you, God. I receive." The reflection looked more beautiful. She saw herself through different eyes. She wasn't just a mother trying to survive. She was a woman cleansing her soul, making room for money to enter and stay. Because money doesn't hate work. It doesn't hate effort. But it hates clutter, chaos, and resistance. And now, there was no place left for chaos to hide. If you believe that money loves order and clarity, like this video and subscribe to the channel. The next chapters will inspire you even more with Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings. Chapter 5. The Invisible Language of the House. The morning after Karen's call, Charlotte woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet. The light seeped in through the curtains like a divine whisper. Everything felt at peace. As she made coffee, she noticed something curious. The energy in the house had shifted. It was as if the walls had finally exhaled after years trapped in some invisible tension. There was more space, more light, more presence. And that's when Charlotte had an idea that didn't seem to come from her. It was as if something whispered in her ear. The house listens. The house feels. The house responds. Could my house have been sick? She murmured, glancing around. She returned to the bedroom and picked up Florence's book, still open to where she had left it. And there it was, as if written for that exact moment. Whatever man feels deeply or imagines clearly is impressed upon the subconscious mind and manifests in his life. Florence Scovel Shinn. Charlotte understood. Her house was a reflection of what she felt inside. For years, she had carried frustrations, resentments, the fear of not being able to pay the bills, and her home had absorbed it all. The physical environment had become a silent accomplice to her internal defeats. So she decided to do more than just clean. She would perform a ritual to energetically reprogram her home. She started by writing affirmations on small pieces of paper and placing them discreetly in different rooms. On the bathroom mirror, "Wealth flows to me with ease." On the fridge, "Everything I need is already on its way." In the wardrobe, "God is the source of my provision." As she did it, she noticed she was smiling. For the first time in a long while, she was having a conversation with her space instead of hiding within it. In the living room, she lit a lavender incense, opened the windows, and let the sunlight in. She ran her hand over the curtains like caressing an old friend and said aloud, "From this day on, this house will be a temple of prosperity." While organizing the bookshelf, she found an old photo from her married days. Instead of crying, she smiled. She placed the photo on the table, silently thanked the past and thought, "I release everything that no longer serves me and make room for the new." She called Karen that night. She needed to share everything. "You won't believe what I felt today." It was like the house had woken up. I cleaned, reorganized, affirmed, spoke to every corner. "Oh, I believe it," Karen replied. "Because you're remembering who you are. The house is just the beginning. Prosperity starts with the environment, but what transforms everything is your frequency. I've been feeling that. It's like by cleaning the house, I'm cleaning a part of myself that had been forgotten. That's exactly what Florence teaches, Karen said. When you change inside, the world around you adjusts. And you know what else? Your house will start giving you signs. Pay attention to the details. Sometimes it's a different kind of light, a scent that comes out of nowhere, an unexpected phone call. Charlotte looked at the clock. It was late. The night outside was cold, but inside the house the air was warm, cozy, alive. Before bed, she sat at the edge of her mattress, took a deep breath and repeated, "Thank you, God, for this blessed home, for this shelter that now attracts only what is light, what is good, what is prosperous. May everything here reflect my faith and my joy." She smiled and slept with a peaceful heart. Chapter 6. Unexplainable events begin to arise. On Monday morning, Charlotte woke up before her alarm. Something inside her felt like a countdown, as if the universe was about to reveal something. She got up, made her chamomile tea with lemon, and sat on the couch with Florence's book on her lap. She reread the sentence she had underlined the day before. Words and thoughts of envy, anger, fear, and worry poison the mind and body. Money cannot come to a disharmonious spirit. She closed her eyes and repeated silently, "My home is a field of harmony. I am harmony." The doorbell rang. It was barely 8 in the morning. Strange. When she opened the door, she saw Mr. Thompson, her next-door neighbor, holding a brown envelope. "They delivered this to my house by mistake, Charlotte. I thought I'd bring it to you myself." She took the envelope with trembling hands. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Diana, her former colleague at the architecture firm where she had interned years ago. She opened it and read, eyes wide. "Charlotte, I heard from Karen that you're available. I urgently need an assistant for a residential project in Beacon Hill. Short-term but well-paid. Call me." Charlotte didn't know what to say. It was almost unbelievable. After months of closed doors, just now, as she had begun to reorganize her home and her soul, an opportunity showed up effortlessly. "Is this real?" she whispered to herself. She called Diana and within minutes had a meeting scheduled for the next day. It would be a 3-week contract, enough to cover part of her overdue bills and, more importantly, to reignite her confidence. At the end of the day, as she gathered materials for the meeting, she noticed the light in the living room felt different. It wasn't just the bulb. It was as if the house's mood had changed. The air seemed lighter, the silence more gentle, time slower. Charlotte then remembered something Karen had said. After you energetically cleanse your home and align your vibration, life starts to surprise you. She returned to the book and wrote down another affirmation on a small piece of paper, which she stuck to the front door. "Perfect abundance is my divine right." Later that evening, she received a text message from her cousin Emily, who lived in Austin, Texas. They hadn't spoken in months. Emily wrote, "Hey cousin, I was meditating today and felt I should message you. How are you? I dreamt of you in a house full of light." It felt like a sign. Charlotte was moved. She had never been particularly close to Emily. Not close enough for her to reach out like that, out of the blue. It felt like another sign from the unseen. This can't be a coincidence. It's like everything is responding. The house, the universe, even people far away. She then decided to write everything down in a notebook she named the Book of Signs. There, she would record every small manifestation of prosperity, whether direct or indirect. She was convinced what we focus on expands. Before going to bed, she did her ritual. She lit a white candle in the center of the living room, gave thanks for the day's blessings, and said out loud, with her hands over her heart, "May this home continue to be fertile ground for miracles. May I remain open to God's blessings. May my house keep protecting, inspiring, and guiding me." And as she lay down, she heard the whisper of the wind through the slightly open window. A breeze that seemed to say, "Keep going. You're on the right path." Charlotte smiled, eyes brimming with tears. For the first time in years, she felt she was no longer alone. Chapter 7. The Room of Intuition. Charlotte woke up with a start. She had dreamed that she was in an all-white room, with windows open to a green field, and a voice kept repeating, "Prepare the place where you dream. That's where the answers will come." She got up shaken. The room in the dream looked like hers, but much lighter, cleaner, almost ethereal. She looked around. The bedspread was still crumpled, the dresser cluttered with old papers, and the nightstand held a stack of books, an empty water glass, and a melted candle. This is it. This is the place. She had a quick breakfast and started reorganizing her bedroom. She opened the windows, removed everything that had been untouched for months, and created 3 piles: donate, throw away, and keep. Each item seemed to carry an emotional story: clothes that reminded her of hard times, letters from an old relationship, old paid bills still kept as if the debt was somehow still alive in the space. While folding a blue blouse she hadn't worn in years, she felt a chill. It was the same blouse she had worn the day she received news of her father's death. She placed it in the let-go pile. She needed to release the emotional attachments that still lived in that room. She picked up Florence's book and read, as if the page had opened by itself. The subconscious is simply power without direction. It must be directed properly. Charlotte understood instantly. Her bedroom was where she slept, dreamed, and rested, and where her subconscious roamed freely. It was more than just a physical space. It was a direct channel to the divine. She decided to create a new environment. She went to a small home decor shop in Back Bay and bought a light linen curtain, a lilac-toned cushion, and a small lavender incense. Simple, inexpensive things, but ones that would shift the room's energy. When she got home, she cleaned the walls with a mix of warm water, coarse salt, and rosemary leaves. It wasn't superstition, it was faith in motion. By nightfall, she placed a small amber lamp in the corner, softly lighting the whole room. She spread a new throw at the foot of the bed and placed a rose quartz crystal on the dresser. After everything, she sat on the bed, closed her eyes, and said a prayer. "May this room be my temple of intuition. May I dream here, receive guidance, understand signs, and manifest abundance with wisdom." That night she dreamed again. She was in a room full of books. At the center table sat a woman with gray hair and intense eyes. She smiled, with the calm expression of someone who already knew everything. Charlotte approached, and the woman said, "You've finally prepared the field. Now you'll receive instructions. But remember, it's not enough to clean the house. You must keep the heart clean too." She woke up with her heart racing and tears in her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt that her dreams had a purpose, and that her once lifeless, silent home had now become a spiritual ally. Before leaving for the meeting with Diana, she wrote in her notebook, "When I clean my home, I cleanse my soul. And when I cleanse my soul, I hear God's voice more clearly." She taped that phrase behind her bedroom door, just above the handle. She wanted to carry that truth with her every time she stepped out into the world. The meeting with Diana was excellent. The project was challenging, but Charlotte felt ready. Not by chance. She had planted this, inside and out, in spirit and in space. And that night, as she lay down in her transformed bedroom, she heard only a subtle inner voice, like an echo rising from the walls. "You began by cleaning the home. Now you're cleaning your destiny." Chapter 8. Money came in through the kitchen. That Saturday morning, Charlotte woke up feeling different. There was a lightness in the air, and it wasn't just the room, now filled with good vibrations. It was as if the silence in the house was speaking to her. Presence. An invisible whisper of peace. She went down to the kitchen, where the now clean tiles reflected the first rays of sunlight. The wooden table, once cluttered with overdue bills and forgotten papers, was now neatly arranged with a white cloth her mother had sewn years ago. On top of it, a vase of fresh sunflowers. Charlotte made some coffee and, as she sat down, realized that for the first time in years, there was no anxiety in her chest. No rush, no fear. Just a strange certainty. Something was on its way. She picked up her copy of The Game of Life and How to Play It, which now sat by the fruit bowl. She opened it to a random page and read, "Don't force situations. When you connect with God, everything flows effortlessly." She closed her eyes and smiled. That was exactly how she felt. In the last few days, she had stopped chasing and started making space. A sacred space. Within herself. And in her home too. She clearly remembered Florence's guidance. That the home is an extension of the mind. If the mind is confused, the house will be too. And money, being a subtle energy, avoids chaotic places. It was at that moment she heard her phone ring. An unknown number. "Hello. Hi, is this Charlotte? This is Debbie. I live on your street. Sarah from the market told me you make amazing cakes. Do you take orders?" Charlotte blinked a few times. She wasn't expecting that. But she replied naturally, "Yes, of course. For when? I'm having brunch with some friends next week. I'd love something special. And, if it works out, I might order again. I love supporting local businesses, you know? Business." That word echoed in her mind. Charlotte thanked her, took the order and hung up. For a moment, she stared at the wall as if trying to grasp what had just happened. It was just a cake order. But it wasn't just a cake order. It was a sign. It was money coming in through the kitchen. Literally. Charlotte got up enthusiastically. She started rummaging through jars, gathering ingredients. She didn't have much, but she had enough to bake a simple, tasty, beautiful cake. As she mixed the batter, she repeated Florence's teachings in her mind. The invisible supply is unlimited and always available to those who have faith. That phrase now made sense on a level that had once only been theoretical. She didn't know exactly where this flow was coming from, but it was coming. And it was happening because, above all else, she had changed the vibration of her home. The kitchen had become a sacred space of creation. The aroma of the cake filled the air. With every breath, Charlotte felt more connected to something greater, a presence guiding her hands, her thoughts, her actions. It was as if she was finally flowing with life, instead of resisting it. Later that same morning, another call. Then a message on Instagram. Then a voice note from a neighbor. All asking for orders. All saying the same thing. "I heard you bake with love." Charlotte looked around. The house, simple but now vibrant, seemed to smile with her. Money had started to arrive, not because she chased it, but because she had prepared the space for it to come. She remembered what she had written on the bathroom mirror days earlier. "I don't chase money. I attract it with my energy." And there, with her hands still full of flour, her apron messy and her heart full, Charlotte understood. Turning her home into a magnet for money was just a reflection of something much deeper. She had transformed herself. If you've made it this far, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 9. What you allow remains. Charlotte began to notice that every corner of the house had something to say. What once was just clutter, dust, and broken things now revealed old patterns, hidden beliefs. The same ones she had unknowingly been feeding. On Sunday, while organizing an old cabinet in the hallway, she found a box full of overdue bills from years ago, newspaper clippings about economic crises, and even letters from the time her husband had left her. It had all been kept like a sanctuary of fear. She paused, took a deep breath, and understood. What you allow remains. Those words, spoken by Florence in one of her books, echoed powerfully in Charlotte's heart. She had already cleaned the house on the outside, but now it was time to cleanse it energetically. And emotionally, she grabbed a large black trash bag, threw in the papers that symbolized a past that no longer served her. Mentally burned, one by one, the resentments, the failures, the guilt. It was like emptying not just the cabinet, but her soul. In its place, she placed a small white candle and a note. Only prosperity, love, and faith live in this home. As she swept the floor, she remembered what Florence used to say. When you clean your mental world, The external world responds immediately. And it was responding. Orders started increasing. Debbie referred Charlotte to two friends. One wanted sweets for a baby shower. The other for a corporate event. And just like that, in less than a week, she earned the equivalent of 2 months' salary from her old restaurant job. But the most interesting part wasn't the money. It was the ease with which it arrived. No desperation. No rush. No humiliation. Just flow. That night, as she sat in the living room, she noticed something unusual. The silence in the house was now comforting. It no longer screamed pain or emptiness. It whispered peace. The old armchair where she had spent so many nights crying had now become the place where she read Florence out loud, as a daily ritual. And her daughter, Emily, was slowly becoming enchanted by the words too. "Mommy, can I hear you read that part about the game of life again?" Charlotte smiled. Emily loved when she read. Life is a game, and like all games, it requires knowledge of the spiritual rules to win. It was as if her daughter was also absorbing the new atmosphere. A home where faith and prosperity walked hand in hand. On Monday morning, Charlotte decided to do something symbolic. She placed a small red envelope on top of the fridge, with the words "Gratitude in Advance" written on it. Inside, she would always place a small portion of everything she received. This is the seed, she told herself, my partnership with the universe. It was more than a gesture. It was a spiritual contract with God. And maybe because of that same day she received an unexpected message. A young woman named Rachel, who lived in Brooklyn, had seen her cakes on Instagram. She wanted to order 30 units for a business event. She said she loved the simple, elegant, and good energy style. Good energy. Charlotte closed her eyes, smiled, and understood once again that this wasn't coincidence. It was consequence. Her home had become a living reflection of what now existed within her. Organization, clarity, love, trust. The house had become a magnet for money, because Charlotte had become a magnet for abundance. Chapter 10. Now I see. Now I trust. Now I receive. It was amazing how Charlotte's house no longer seemed the same. The smell of cleanliness, the corners free of clutter, the objects rearranged with purpose. Everything breathed order, calm, and beauty. But the most incredible thing was herself. Charlotte, who once felt small, almost invisible, now walked with her shoulders back and head held high. Not because something miraculous had happened outside, but because inside her, the walls of scarcity had crumbled. She had finally understood that the house we live in is a mirror of the house we are. And that the universe, with its perfect math, responds to what we vibrate. Not to what we desperately ask for, but to what we feel is possible, as already existing with serene faith. One sunny afternoon, while opening a desk drawer to put away organized receipts, Charlotte saw the yellow post stuck to a card. "Charlotte, I heard from Karen that you're available. I urgently need an assistant for a residential project in Beacon Hill. It's short but well paid. Call me. Elizabeth Carter, architect." She stood there, staring at the paper as if it had just appeared at that moment. When she received the message before, she had felt too small to accept. She thought she wouldn't have the time, structure, talent, or anything to justify her presence in such a project. But now it was different. Charlotte picked up her phone with steady hands and dialed. When she heard Elizabeth's voice answer, she simply said, "Hi, this is Charlotte. I'd like to talk about that project in Beacon Hill. Is it still available?" Elizabeth smiled on the other side. "I've been waiting for your call for months, dear." "Yes, it is." That night, while sorting her measuring tools and some fabric samples, Charlotte passed by the fireplace altar where she had left her favorite quote from Florence. "Nothing is too small for the universe, and nothing is too big." She touched the frame gently. For the first time, she wasn't just repeating phrases. She was living them. Lying down, she took a deep breath. She felt the mattress like a throne, the ceiling like an open sky of possibilities, and whispered softly like a little girl, "Thank you, Florence. Thank you, God. Now I see. Now I trust. Now I receive." And she slept peacefully, If this story touched something inside you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that the place where we live can be the first step towards our prosperity. Your home is ready, and so are you. Charlotte taught us something deep and transformative. The energy of abundance begins in the environment where we live, but it only expands when our heart is ready to receive it. The change in her home was just a reflection of her inner transformation. By applying the teachings of Florence Scovel Shinn, purifying the environment, choosing words carefully, silencing thoughts of scarcity, and activating her practical faith, Charlotte stopped resisting prosperity and became a natural magnet for it. And it was precisely when she was no longer desperately searching that the forgotten invitation resurfaced. While organizing her inbox, Charlotte found again that message from the architect Karen had recommended weeks before. "Charlotte, I heard from Karen that you're available. I urgently need an assistant for a residential project in Beacon Hill. It's short but well paid. Call me." Before, Charlotte would have hesitated. She would have told herself she wasn't ready. But now, with her soul in order and her home vibrating prosperity, she smiled and replied immediately. "Hi, I'm available. When can we talk?" This was the new Charlotte. The woman who cleaned drawers, changed words, elevated her thoughts, and thus elevated her reality. You don't need to move to a new city or have a lot of money in the bank. You just need to make peace with the idea that God is abundance, and He wants you to manifest it. And that manifestation begins with small steps, with a clean drawer, with an affirmation spoken with faith, with a silent and firm choice to no longer live in chaos. Charlotte's house changed. Charlotte's life changed. And yours can change too. Transform your house. Transform your mind. Money finds its way where order vibrates.